Hey guys, ThePerfectG here with a heavily requested guide. Today I'm going to break down how to maximize your DPS in the Xarpus room using a method called 5-tick scything. This method may sometimes be confused with the 4-tick, also known as the 5.33-tick melee method. However, with a scythe, depending on Xarpus' defense, Blowpipe will typically be stronger if you don't use the 5-tick method. Now, disclaimer, this video is pre-Blowpipe nerf. Regardless, this guide does assume you already know 4-tick Xarpus somewhat, but I'll start with the absolute basics. So if you're here for the 5-tick portion, there will be timestamps in the description for you to skip ahead. When the final exhume disappears, stand on the corner square here or any corner like it to spec. On a typical lowercase c team, you may find that everyone's using a hammer, so I'll assume you do as well. Just don't double claw it, as funny as that would be. Xarpus is going to attack using acid splat bubbles in the order of the orbs in the top left. You'll notice that I, or me, am in the third orb. So after I double hammer, I switch to my range gear. If you're the first in orb order, run all the way back to the wall immediately after using your special attacks. The main focus here is to only move when Xarpus looks at you 2 squares at a time so you don't get hit by the splat. An important thing to notice is that I stay along the wall. If I come 2 squares closer to Xarpus, I'll be on the line that my teammates are using to melee, and I'll get in their way. Once Xarpus screeches, simply attack in the quadrant that he's not looking at you, or you'll likely die. You are able to tick eat this, but there's no benefit in doing so except for super massive clout. I did it! Typically, once you get a scythe, or if you're an Iron Man saving for scales with whip or rapier, you can utilize a method called 4-tick. Just like P2 Verzik, you'll attack 3 times and then skip your 4th hit. The only difference here is instead of going 1 tile back, you go 2 tiles back. So you'll notice in this clip, because I'm using a scythe, which is a 5-tick weapon, against Xarpus, which attacks on a 4-tick cycle, I can't attack every time I pull up to Xarpus. So you'll see I attack 3 times, and then when I would have attacked the 4th time, I'm back 2 tiles again to repeat the cycle. The difference between 4 and 5-tick Xarpus is when you would have normally skipped that 4th hit, you stand on a square that's already ragged, such as the corner you started your special attacks from, to do that 4th hit, and then you repeat the cycle exactly the same. I'm going to show you how to spec in different patterns so you can set up the 5-tick method yourself, but for now start out with 4 ticks, and when you're comfortable, switch to the 5 ticks for maximum DPS. So you'll notice here the 3rd hit, and then here the skip, and it repeats. The 1st hit, the 2nd hit, the 3rd hit, and so forth. Now you are able to DD 4-tick with a teammate if you'd like to practice for duos, but it can get clunky, especially since this clip was in 4:16, so I do a DD decline and I go to my own side. Now the first setup for 5-ticking is going to be what's called O2. This means I'll have hammered 0 times and BGS 2 times. This is a normal tactic for mage rolls using ancients. So you'll see here, I scythe 2 times, then I immediately pull back as the second scythe swings and do 2 BGSs when I return. Now I'll stay on that corner until Xarpus looks at me again, and then we begin the cycle. So you'll notice here, my 1 hit, my 2 hit, my 3 hit, and this time instead of skipping, I go and rag that tile. It may already be ragged, so as soon as you click attack for that 4th hit, move off of the tile immediately and then repeat the cycle from 1, 2, 3 hits, and then rag again, and so forth. Now the next method I'll show you is 2-0. This is normally the DPS role's job since they bring Inquisitor, but regardless of that, this just means that you'll do 2 hammers and no BGSs. You'll notice here I spec 2 times and then switch to Scythe. I'll pull back when Xarpus actually looks at me, so I only rag that 1 tile. Now in this case, I'm going to be pulling back and I'm already on the first hit of the cycle. So I Scythe until it looks at me, I pull back and I attack. 1, 2, 3, and instead of skipping, like I said before, you go on that rag tile and immediately move off of it and begin the cycle again. If you click attack on Xarpus too soon for some of the hits, you may accidentally rag a front row tile like I do here. Even though Xarpus didn't look at me directly, one of my teammates' acid splats will bounce to mine. This next method is something called 1-1, and I'm sure you guessed it. That means you do one hammer, and then you're going to switch to your BGS as soon as you see a member on your team doing their second hammer. Once Xarpus looks at you, pull back like mentioned before, get into the 5-tick cycle. But in cases like this, you may not always start off on the first hit. You'll notice here I pull back and I'm in the third hit of the cycle. So I immediately go to the rag tile for my fourth hit. Remember, the animation for the first hit will begin as you run up to Xarpus, the second tick will be as you're reaching Xarpus, and the third hit, your scythe will swing right before you click back. It can be a bit confusing at first, but once you know the part of the cycle you're in, you can simply just fix it. The final pattern of the special attacks is not a role you'll genuinely find in 416, but you'll see it more on advanced teams. Here you'll notice I hammer one time, but for my second spec, I'm actually going to use claws. Now, realistically, I should have waited one more scythe hit before using those claws, that way his defense is closer to 0 from my team BGSing. Typically with Xarpus, the goal is to hit 3 hammers and then BGS a certain amount of damage, lowering it to 0 defense. But once you pull back, just get in the same cycle as before. Now, I've shown you all the different special attack patterns that you can do with Xarpus, and obviously it's going to change if you're in orb order, so keep in mind you always just want to be able to fix it. Know what part of the cycle you're on, and again, start out with 4 ticking, so you can just know the 1, the 2, and the 3, and the skip tile. Once you get that, 5 ticking should be easy. Now here we're looking at the same clip as before, which is the O2. I put this at the end so it's a little bit easier to go back and rewatch. This is the one I would advise watching the most as it's the cleanest 5-tick clip in the video. And with that, you should now be able to maximize your DPS on Xarpus. But seriously, remember, it is not the easiest thing to do. You may not succeed at first, but it is totally worth doing. And once you get the timing down, it'll be a massive advantage for you to do this for the sake of for faster raids and for more chances at the purple in your name. So if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe so you can be notified for more Perfect G content in the future. And if you'd like me to make a guide on anything else, feel free to leave a comment down below or come and visit me on Twitch where I'm live just about every day and let me know. Thanks for watching.